when bugs ruled the earth, the world before dinosaurs, before the thunder of T-Rex, before the mammoths roamed the Ice Age, even before the first lizards crept across the sand. There was a time when Earth belonged to monsters, but not the kind you're thinking of. These beasts didn't roar, they buzzed, they clicked, they hissed, and they were everywhere. Imagine a dragonfly with a wingspan wider than your laptop, a scorpion longer than your arm, crawling through prehistoric swamps, centipedes the size of alligators sliding silently beneath rotting ferns. Welcome to the Carboniferous Period, when bugs ruled the earth. Chapter 1: The Jungle of Giants. The Carboniferous, around 359 to 299 million years ago, was a time of towering plants, shallow seas, and thick, humid forests that stretched across entire continents. It was a greenhouse world, warm, wet, and wild. Earth's atmosphere was very different from today. Oxygen levels were incredibly high, up to 35% compared to 21% today. That might not sound like much, but to insects, who absorb oxygen through holes in their exoskeleton, it was everything. With more oxygen in the air, insects could grow larger than ever before without suffocating. And so they did. The forest floor became a hunting ground for monster millipedes and giant cockroach-like creatures. The air buzzed with wings the size of birds. Swamps echoed with the clicking of armored jaws. These weren't just bugs. These were prehistoric titans. Chapter 2: The Dragonflies That Dominated the Sky. One of the most iconic rulers of this era was Meganeura, an ancient relative of the dragonfly. But this wasn't the delicate little bug you swat at during a picnic. Meganeura had a wingspan of nearly 30 inches. That's about the size of a modern-day seagull. It soared through the air with sharp mandibles and massive compound eyes, hunting other insects mid-flight. It was the top aerial predator of its time. No birds, no bats, no flying dinosaurs. Just this enormous insect patrolling the skies of a forest that no human has ever walked through. And for millions of years, it was unbeatable. Chapter 3: The Scorpions That Stalked the Shore. On the ground, and even in the water, other monsters crept. Enter Pulmonoscorpius, a scorpion the length of a child's arm. Imagine encountering a scorpion over 2.5 feet long, its pincers spread wide, its stinger curling over its armored back. These weren't isolated freaks. They were part of a thriving ecosystem of gigantic arthropods, some of which crawled the shores while others lurked beneath the swampy waters. And then there was Eurypterid, the sea scorpion, stretching up to 8 feet long, a true underwater terror with claws like meat hooks. These creatures didn't just survive. They thrived, and they did it in a world where the vertebrates, fish, and amphibians were still learning how to walk on land. Chapter 4: Why Insects Got So Big. But how did insects, which today are so small, ever get so massive? It comes down to a perfect storm of factors. First, the oxygen. With so much of it in the atmosphere, their passive breathing system could support much larger bodies. Second, competition. Vertebrates were primitive, slow, and few in number. There were no birds, no reptiles, just amphibians that couldn't venture far from water. That left the sky and much of the land wide open for bugs to dominate. And third, the environment. The Carboniferous was packed with dense vegetation. Giant ferns, club mosses, and horsetails grew taller than modern trees. There was no grass, no flowers, just a green alien world teeming with rot and insects to feed on it. For a moment in time, the world was tailor-made for insects to become monsters. But it didn't last. Chapter 5: The Fall of the Giants. As Earth moved toward the Permian period, the oxygen levels began to drop. The lush forests thinned. The climate dried out, and reptiles, tougher and better at regulating their internal systems, began to rise. For the giant insects, the fall was rapid. Their massive bodies couldn't function without the supercharged air. Their dominance ended not with a meteor, but with a slow suffocation and the rise of new predators. Meganeura vanished, Pulmonoscorpius disappeared into the fossil record, and the world passed its crown from the bugs to the beasts. But for millions of years, before the first dinosaur ever walked the earth, The monsters had 6 legs and compound eyes, the forgotten kings of Earth. When we think of prehistoric monsters, we picture teeth, claws, scales, and bones. But we forget that before all of that, the world belonged to creatures without bones at all. The Carboniferous is a lost chapter, a time when insects were the apex predators, when forests stretched from pole to pole, and the air itself fueled the rise of the strangest giants Earth has ever known. It makes you wonder, could it happen again? If oxygen levels spiked in the future, would bugs rise once more? Could we see dragonflies big enough to eat birds? Could the forgotten kings of Earth return? If you enjoyed this deep dive into Earth's most overlooked monsters, hit that like button. Subscribe for more mind-bending journeys through deep time. And let us know in the comments, which Carboniferous creature would you face if you had to? Because sometimes the creepiest monsters aren't the ones with teeth. They're the ones with wings and way too many legs.